The Toronto Maple Leafs have a hidden gem in the KHL, as well as an NHL insider reveals the asking price for Penguins forward Jake Guentzel. And we'll break it all down for you coming up on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, just want to say that 77.5% of you guys watch this video aren't subscribed. So if you love hockey, just like all of us here on the channel, make sure down below and hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of the video today, which is Guentzel's asking price revealed. And as we take a look here, this is from an ESPN reporter. I believe it's Erica Kaplan. She says, has been told the Penguins are looking for a sky-high return for Guentzel. The quote here is, I've heard the asking price on Guentzel is multiple first-round picks or a first-round pick and equivalent in top prospects or roster players. Kaplan writes, one rival executive said the Guentzel asking price is ridiculous. And we did also get some quotes from Kyle Dubas on this. He said, Dubas confirmed last week that Guentzel could be a casualty as the Penguins try to manage their core to complete while also getting younger. He says, I understand how valuable he is as a teammate, person in the community, contributor to helping the team win the Stanley Cup, and so on and so forth. But it's important, he said, but at the same time, we have to stock with where we're at and be realistic about the fact of one of the issues we have is we need to get younger. We have a lot of guys in their 30s signed. Some of them are some of the best players in the history of the franchise. And he also said it's tough with Jake, as I've said to him, because he's an excellent player and playing at an elite level. We have to find a way to continue to have those solid veteran guys, but also continue to get younger at the same time. And Mark, I think it's at this point we've kind of realized that Jake Guentzel is probably the number one trade target for a lot of teams come trade deadline. And I don't think this asking price is too off for a guy like Jake Guentzel. I think he's a phenomenal player in this league and can really help a Stanley Cup contender really go for the playoffs and go for the Stanley Cup this year. And I mean, like Dubas said here, it kind of sucks that he's going to be a casualty of this team because the team just needs to get younger at this point for them to have any kind of a future.
Yeah, the big thing is that Dubas has kind of said that he doesn't want to touch the core. The core seems like it's obviously going to be Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Carlson. You have so much cap just tied up in these guys, especially with Crosby's extension coming up soon. So the big thing with this is Jake Guentzel's not going to be able to be re-signed by the Penguins as his asking price is going to be too high. The Penguins are in a weird spot of fighting for the playoffs, still trying to get younger. They might not even make the playoffs. So Dubas is in a weird spot of, yes, getting younger is probably the best idea. You still have Crosby, but then you also risk the chances of, and I'm not saying Crosby's going to leave the Penguins ever. I am pretty certain he'll retire there, but you need to make sure this guy's happy. You can't just go into a retool, rebuild, whatever it might be. So you need to really acquire guys that can make impacts immediately. The big thing with Guentzel is a lot of teams are going to be afraid to almost give up this asking price, in my opinion, because this guy's a UFA going into the offseason. I know there's a lot of reports that the Canucks are looking at him, but if you do give up, just say 2 firsts, a prospect, whatever it might be, you need to resign him. This guy could walk straight into UFA, sign with another team. Then you pretty much give up a lot of your future while you're competing and not have anyone to really show for it. Now, Jake is a guy that can come in, play on your top line. We've seen him numerous times with Crosby be outstanding. Even with Crosby out or when they are split up, Jake Guentzel still puts up numbers. He can score, put up assists. He's not going to be your best defensive guy, but overall offensively, he's going to be a weapon. Power play one, top unit, whatever it might be. This guy is going to make a huge impact, and it will be interesting to see will Dubas kind of budge on his asking price or if teams are just going to say screw it and just go all in for a guy like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there. It kind of sucks because Jake Guentzel is Crosby's kind of right-hand man over these last couple of years. They've really clicked together up here on this top line or even split up. But like you said, you're getting a great player here, a great power play specialist, a great goal scorer, an elite player in the NHL. And I think maybe they won't go for the 2 first-round picks. I think they'll more go for the pick and a prospect or a pick and, a prospect who's a little bit older, maybe in their like 22 to 24 range, I would imagine. Someone who can come in and just make an impact on this team immediately, because I think that's what they need, because like you said, they're only a couple games out of the playoff picture right now, so you kind of want to ship this guy off, get something in return, but you also want to get something in return that's going to help you make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a big thing. They're not going to move this guy from maybe 2 18-year-olds, 2 19-year-olds. Yes, they do want draft capital. I think this will be used at the draft. Maybe they draft someone wants, trade down, acquire more picks. Use this to kind of trade for other players to go forward with the future to try to get Crosby another chip. But the big thing is you lose Guentzel, it's going to make a huge impact on this Penguins team. Like Dubas said, this team's not young. They're one of the oldest team in the league. They might actually be the oldest just complete roster in the league. So they do want to compete, but they also need to get younger. So it's really a tricky situation for Dubas to kind of figure out, keep everyone happy, re-sign Crosby, and just go from there. But I don't think it's a bad idea just trying to get younger. The first guy that comes to mind is Dawson Mercer. I think this is the type of guy the Penguins want. Do the Devils move him? I don't think there's a single chance they do. Maybe if it's Jake Guentzel straight for Dawson Mercer, yes, you look at it. But I think they're going to want a player like this that is fringe at the level of being a top six forward and just pushing to be an all-star type player. And I think Pittsburgh is going to look at every option going to the deadline. And I think a move is pretty much intimate at this point.
Yeah, I really have to agree with that. I really do think that this guy is going to be moved out at the deadline just from all the stuff we're seeing come out day-to-day basis, updates on teams that are interested in this guy. I really do think that we will see this happen, and it'll be interesting to see what they do here because, like you said, you don't want to upset the star player here in Sidney Crosby and then ship him out and then not be able to make the playoffs because you don't have him on your team. So I think it's kind of like you said, a weird situation where you either got to do it or you maybe have to hold on to him and lose him for nothing in this point, just the way the team is right now. But it will be interesting to see what they do here come the trade deadline. I really do think that we will see him shipped out, and in the return will be really interesting to see what we see happen here. But we're going to get into our next topic, which is the Leafs have a hidden gem in the KHL. And as we take a look here from friend of the show, Kyle Cushman, he says Nikita Grebyonkin finished his sophomore regular season today in the KHL. Here are all of his goals and notable assists. This was a video. He put it up on his Twitter if you want to go check that one out. But in 67 games, he had 19 goals, 41 points, and was a plus 12, which is a great stat line here from this guy. And we're just going to take a look at this. Is a comparison of his stats from last season to this season. Obviously improving from goals, having 6 more goals this year, improving his point production, his shots, his hits, got a little bit more physical this year. Just seems like he had a great year-to-year improvement here this year in the KHL, and we're just going to move on to this one here, where this is here is Grebyonkin's points per game compared to top 20 people who've came over from the KHL or have played in the KHL in recent years. They say it's a good reason, but it's not that in that can't miss tier. Still, I like his tools and think he can be a player. And as we take a look at this chart here, we see him among the names of Artemi Panarin, a guy who came over and dominated in the NHL. He's actually above Artemi Panarin and Andrei Kuzmenko in this list for point per game production, and just below a guy like Pavel Buchnevich, who's having a great season this year as well. Obviously, at the top, we have Tarasenko, Kaprizov, Kuznetsov, some top KHL talent that has came over to the NHL. And Mark, I believe this is just really big for the Toronto Maple Leafs that they have such a young player here over in the KHL dominating that league. And I really do hope to see him on this Leafs roster next year.
Yeah, the big thing is he's only 20 years old and he's putting up these dominant numbers against complete pros in the Russian league. I mean, you've seen this list here, Kaprizov, Tarasenko above him, Panarin. The big thing with this is people might look and say he's a 5th-round pick. What can he really bring? This should be a top-end talent if we're going to talk about him this much. But you look at a guy like Kirill Kaprizov, which is Minnesota's best player. He's looking like a franchise player. He's been completely dominated. He was also a 5th-round pick. The big thing with NHL scouts, you're kind of taking a shot on a guy like this. You could draft a guy like Kaprizov in the 1st round. He dominates in the KHL and then never comes over. It's always scary to draft the Russian players. They might want to stay in the KHL. They might never come over, or maybe they come over at the age of 27, 28. We've seen Panarin come over at a late age as well. He signed as UFA with the Chicago Blackhawks, which did really help playing with a guy like Patty Kane. But the big thing is getting a guy like this over from the KHL is something the Leafs really need to look at. I know his KHL team kind of spoke on it at one point. They said said if he wanted to make the transition to the NHL, they'd welcome back on the team with open arms if things never worked out. So I could see him maybe making an impact or joining the Marlies in the next season or two, getting his foot into North American ice. And with such a small cap hit and the Leafs looking to be contenders for quite some time, this is a guy that can make the roster maybe in 2 years, 3 years, maybe even next year if he dominates enough. And he would be just a huge add. I know a lot of draft analysis on this guy is just like he's a great stick handler. He has speed. He's a big body. And like you've seen, he has almost 20 goals and just the point totals. I think he's going to be a stud, and I could really see him in the middle six for the Leafs in just the near future.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from this guy here. At 20 years old, I mean, coming over, if he does come over next season at 20 or 21, whatever it may be at that time, I think that it will work out in his benefit for his career. Coming over at a young age, learning kind of, how to play the North American style of hockey, because it is kind of a completely different style of hockey if you look at it in that way. But I think he come over from training camp, see how he does in training camp, see what this player's like here, and maybe he has a great training camp, and maybe we have an argument saying maybe he can make the opening right roster, or at worst case scenario, you send him down to the Marlies, let him get his footing down, playing professionally on North American ice down with the Toronto Marlies, and see how he does down there, and eventually, if he starts dominating the AHL like he kind of started dominating the KHL this year, we will see him as a future Maple Leaf.
Yeah, you see the Leafs have been just kind of looking at a lot of players in the AHL. I mean, Bob McMahon's the most recent one we're seeing. He's dominating. He's top 10 in scoring since the All-Star break. So maybe this guy goes down, gets his footing, and they call him up. And the thing is, Bob McMahon's 27. And the big thing with this is he'd only be 21, 22 if he does get the call up in the next 2 years. Do I think he's a franchise player? No, I wouldn't go that far. Do I think he can be an impactful bottom six, middle six guy? I definitely think so. And getting an NHL player in the fifth round is just a big feat for any NHL team.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like you said, you can't guarantee this guy to be a franchise player, but I do think he will be an impactful bottom six player, like you just said. We've seen guys like Panarin, Busnevich come over and develop into star players in this league, and I mean, we could potentially see this with a guy like Grebyonkin if he comes over at a young age and starts, learning how to play the North American game. I really do have high hopes for this guy, and I really do hope we get to see him next year with the Marlies or with the Leafs at some point during his career. But we wanted to give you guys a little update here. I mean, a fifth round pick who's kind of dominating the KHL is great news for Toronto Maple Leafs fans, because like you said, they're looking at the AHL quite a lot. Recently, I think one thing that the Toronto Maple Leafs front office staff does well is drafting. I think they draft such a great draft pool. They have a lot of great prospects down within the AHL, down within even the East Coast League. They've had some great players over the years, and I'm really excited for this guy to come over, and I can't wait to see what he does in training camp next season. But we're going to get into everybody's favorite topic here on the channel, and that is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Kevin. He says, Woll will boost the team so greatly. A huge upgrade. Shout out to you, Kevin. Really appreciate your comment on the video there. I love to see your support down in the comment section. We love seeing all your guys' support down in the comment section. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a comment today on everything we talked about. What do you think about a Guentzel trade? What do you think about this KHL superstar that may come over to the Leafs next year? Let us know down below. You might be featured on the next comment of the day. But while you're down there as well, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road for 3,000 subscribers here. We're getting pretty close. So if you're not subscribed already, you love the NHL, you love the Leafs, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. But if you enjoy the NHL, make sure to check out this video. It's popping up on your screen right now. We did yesterday. And as always, I've been your host, KC, alongside my co-host, Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.